Now to some somber news out of South Africa today. She was an icon, the mother of a nation. Now, Winnie Madikizela-Mandela is gone, but her legacy endures. Her family says the 81-year-old passed away today, surrounded by loved ones. She'd long been ill, and she became famous because of her marriage to Nelson Mandela. And Winnie grew into a warrior against apartheid in her own right.
What are you doing here, killing our people? What are you arresting our people for?
I do not know that.
You do not know? What are they doing in your van? Why did you come take them from that fucker camp when they're done?
Now, Victor Dlamini is a Mandela Family Spokesman. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to Duarte. I mean, it's incredible that you are talking to me here in New York, where I was supposed to be on holiday with my daughter. And this morning I got the news, early South African afternoon, and early morning New York time, that Mrs. Mandela had passed away. And it's been a devastating morning for South Africa. But I think more importantly, because we had grown accustomed to having around, the idea that she could die was just impossible for many of us to imagine.
Help us put her life into perspective. When her husband was in prison for 40 years, he became the symbol of a nation, but in many ways, she was out there fighting day to day on the streets of South Africa for the end of apartheid. How are we to remember her?
So, Duarte, just to give you a sense, in the 27 years that Nelson Mandela was locked up, mostly on Robben Island, it was Winnie who, because she wasn't banned at the time, because remember the African National Congress and the other political organizations that fought to eradicate apartheid and discrimination in South Africa and ensure that freedom finally dawned on the country. They relied very much on her charisma, on her power, but mostly also on her ability to be fearless. Those who will have seen her in action knew that here was a woman that didn't fear the power of Africa's most powerful nation, that had an incredible military. It also had nuclear arms, and she will stand by the roadside. She will go and take the battle right to the government. And so as we look at her life, we have to understand that one of the things that she symbolizes was the powerful role that women actually played in the struggle. Because I think many people imagine that she was made by Nelson Mandela.
That's the popular misconception,
yeah,
right?
In fact, if you look at it, it was she who kept his memory alive, because at the time when he was locked up in prison and his pictures couldn't be used, nor could his name be quoted in the newspaper, it was her that could be mentioned by name. And I think in many ways she kept his memory alive.
She did this for 27 years. How do women in South Africa view her? What kind of symbol is she for women in South Africa?
So one of the things that's very clear, if you look at popular culture, the number of songs that have been dedicated to Winnie Madikizela-Mandela by artists like Thandiswa Mazwai, Satima Pia Benjamin, and others, they suggest someone that was really an icon of the struggle, but someone that inspires women in terms of their understanding of how someone could rise beyond patriarchy and become a galvanizing force for saying this is not right and we're going to stop it.
Now, ultimately they got divorced, but theirs is a love story.
Well, when you look at the letters that they exchanged when Nelson Mandela was on Robben Island, so if you look at, she published a book called 491 Days 4 years ago, and if you look at his own story, A Long Walk to Freedom, the love letters that they exchanged were so beautiful, so personal. The sense of loss of this love, this great love that was interrupted when he was taken for the first time to Robben Island, you get a sense of an incredible loss. But also, you get a sense of two people that wrote beyond just the politics. So we imagine them to be these political figures, but they were deeply in love. And I think this is partly the reason why there was this mythology of Winnie and Nelson as a kind of a modern love story, a tragic one certainly, but one that sustained and I think inspired so many people to imagine that it was possible to combine politics with a great love.
And her life wasn't without controversy, but what are we to make about that now that she's gone?
So when you fight every day the most powerful military power on the African continent that has got everything trained against you, you get detained, you get banished to small towns, you get imprisoned arbitrarily, it is impossible for you not to, at some point, make a deal that you will use everything in your power to free the nation. And I think we have to understand her in that context, that she took a decision that whatever it took to fight the apartheid government so that finally it will crack, that for her, South Africa wasn't just some nebulous concept, it was her family. She saw every person that suffered at the hands of apartheid as her own family. And that's why South Africans called her the mother of the nation, because she cared that deeply. And I think the legacy that she will leave is one of someone that was triumphant, powerful. Those of us who are lucky enough to have been in her presence, we knew how electrifying she was, but she was also deeply committed to justice. And in the broader scheme of things, I think history will be very kind on her.
Thank you so much for sharing your memories about her life. Victor Dlamini, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Duarte.